Hello everybody, welcome back to Art Smart. Today I'm just kind of kicking it back like I'm 6 years old watching cartoons in bed like on Saturday morning. Hey, I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about this particular DVD. This is the Looney Tunes Mouse Chronicles, and it's part of the Chuck Jones collection. This is a series of DVDs released by WB talking about Chuck Jones and his career. And it takes selections from different parts of his career and gives you an idea of the kinds of cartoons that he did as a director. Now, Chuck Jones is one of the few directors that I think definitely deserves a little bit more time and attention if you are an animation fan or historian. He is a director that did all kinds of things to help progress the art forward. He did some early cartoons that were a little quieter, a little bit more Disney-like and slower, but in the period, though, of approximately like 1945 to about 1955, 56, 57, somewhere around there, he made some of the greatest cartoons that were ever made, including One Froggy Evening and What's Opera Doc, and tons of others. He did great cartoons there, and although I personally don't like a lot of his later stuff after, the late 1950s, he still was very influential in the industry. A lot of his shorts did really well on television. He did have a feature film, The Phantom Tollbooth, and he just was one of the few people in Hollywood that continued to make real animation with full animation, not a bunch of TV-type shortcuts and cheap things. He continued to make some real cartoons for many, many years. And so although they're not my favorite, I definitely think that he helped to keep the industry alive for a long time. So he definitely deserves credit for that. Now, if you are trying to learn about Chuck Jones, I definitely think it's worth picking up some of these DVDs because it's some of the better collections of Chuck Jones related material that you're going to be able to find. It's the only one that's been made as far as I've been aware. However, I will say that I think they did an awkward job of putting these together. And let me just give you an example. The Mouse Chronicles. What does the Mouse Chronicles have to do with Chuck Jones? Nothing, really. I mean, he had a couple of mouse characters. And it doesn't necessarily represent what I think is his most important work. I don't think it represents even his most interesting work. I think at this point they are just trying to appeal to as many people as possible. And some executive said, hey, people out there that aren't interested in Chuck Jones will get this because they like cartoon mice. Who thinks that way? Who gives a crap about cartoon mice? Nobody. They like a funny or an interesting cartoon. Nobody likes Mickey Mouse because he's a mouse. They like Mickey Mouse because, of his adventures and things that he goes on. No one gives a crap about mice in cartoons other than whether the mice are interesting or not. So I think it's weird that they put this particular collection together the way that they did. Some of these Chuck Jones Chronicles, the Chuck Jones collections, are a little bit more centered in on something that makes sense, like his later Tom and Jerry cartoons. It makes sense that they would package those together. But the fact that they're trying to just shoehorn a bunch of his mouse cartoons together really doesn't make any sense. So I'm not really sure who they're marketing this towards. And in fact, I guess they're trying to market to everybody, the cartoon collector and the novice cartoon fan at the same time. But by trying to appeal to everyone, they really are not appealing to anyone all that much. And so I think it's kind of awkwardly done. Hubie and Bertie are in this cartoon collection. Sniffles, which is basically a character that universally people think is kind of boring and slow. But those are packaged here together. So if you want to learn about his Sniffle cartoons, I guess it's good for that. There is a special feature on here where they're talking about the importance of mice in Warner Brothers cartoon history, which is complete. I'm sorry, it's just BS. Nobody gives a crap about that. They put together a small little featurette to seem to make this weird cartoon compilation make sense. But it's really not worth your time. The Warner Brothers staff didn't care about mice. They were just trying to come up with cartoons that they thought were funny. So anyone who's watching that, I think it's a waste of time. They also threw in a bunch of other mouse-related cartoons that are not part of Chuck Jones's collection. And so those are just kind of, it's nice to have more cartoons, I guess, but it has nothing to do with Chuck Jones. So why is it on this disc? It doesn't really make any sense. I will say that the commentaries are pretty good. There's Greg Ford and Jerry Beckett do some commentaries on here, and they try their best to try to put these cartoons in the context of Chuck Jones's history, but without a lot of Chuck Jones's more important films, which were not mouse related. A lot of what they're saying is probably going to fall on deaf ears unless you are a true cartoon fan like me and I go and I find all these other cartoons. For your average fan, they're just going to be bored and they're not going to have the cartoons to go and reference to find out what Greg Ford and Jerry Buck are talking about. So in general, if you are a big fan of Chuck Jones and if you want to kind of on your own figure out more and more about his history, sure, go ahead and pick this up if you get it for cheap. But in general, this is just an awkward collection. It was not very well put together, and it doesn't seem to be marketing itself well to anybody. The average cartoon fan just wants to see funny cartoons, and the rest of us that like cartoon collections want it to make sense so that we can better understand the history of cartoons. So in general, I would skip it unless you're looking at it for truly educational purposes or if you're just a Chuck Jones fanatic. Have a great day, everybody. Make sure you continue to art smart, and thank you for continuing to come back here for more DVD and cartoon reviews. Bye-bye.